Hello and welcome back to the Hasbajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and why am I doing a World Cup predictions video when it's cold? Well, actually, I know I'm doing a World Cup predictions video when it's cold. It's because FIFA is a morally bankrupt and corrupt organisation that doesn't care about anything or anyone's rights, especially LGBTQ+ or migrant workers' rights, and they don't care about anything except for money. But we're not going to delve into that right now. We're going to delve instead into my World Cup predictions for the upcoming tournament in Qatar. I'm going to go through the group stages in a lot of detail, and then the knockout stages in a little bit less detail, because obviously those will be completely hypothetical, and I can almost guarantee that not every single one of the ties that I predict will happen will actually take place. So as I say, I'm going to dwell a lot more on the group stages and a little bit less on the knockout stages, because as I say, it's all very hypothetical from that point. But let me know your World Cup predictions down in the comments below, and if you go on to enjoy this video, don't forget, slap a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But without further ado, here are my predictions for the upcoming World Cup. We'll start off with the logical place to start in the form of Group A. We have the hosts, Qatar, who I don't know too much about in all honesty, but they did win the 2019 Asian Cup and have had international experience participating in a few tournaments like the Gold Cup recently, and they'll have home advantage on their side as well. But of course, if there's any hint of bias, FIFA will never be able to live it down. Then you've got Ecuador, who are an exciting if unpredictable side, blessed with a sprinkling of talent, the likes of Hinchapia by Leverkusen and Moise Caicedo of Brighton. You've got Senegal, who will be deprived of their star man Sadio Mane for this tournament because of injury, but have still got a fantastic squad containing the likes of Khalidou Koulibaly, Edouard Mendy and Ismaïla Sarr, and did win the African Cup of Nations in 2020 this year. And then you have the Netherlands, who are probably the favourites for the group, with an absolutely packed squad from defence to attack, apart from in goal, interestingly, which I think will be problematic for Louis van Gaal, given how much he prioritises that position and considers it to be, of paramount importance. As for who will go through, I think it's going to be the Netherlands who finish in top, and as for second place, it's not implausible that Qatar will make it through based on home advantage and the like, but I think Senegal have a bit too much for both Ecuador and Qatar, who will finish in third and fourth respectively. Even without Sadio Mane, deprived of him for the tournament, as I said earlier, I think they still have enough class in their squad and enough tournament nous, considering, as I say, they won the AFCON, to get them through the group. Group B is, according to the FIFA World Rankings, the toughest group in the entire tournament, with all of the teams inside FIFA's top 20 as of the time of this recording, namely England, Wales, Iran, and the USA. England are probably the favourites for this group, but there are question marks about Southgate, if it's time for him to finally release the shackles, or if he'll stick to his principles that worked so well for him at Euro 2020 and to an extent the 2018 World Cup. And of course, they have poor form going into the finals, but I don't really think they cared too much about the Nations League anyway. Then you've got the USA, who have a very young and exciting squad with the likes of Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams, Giovanni Reina, Brendan Aronson, to name just a few, who will want to show themselves ahead of the 2026 World Cup, which they will co-host with Canada and Mexico. Although from what I gather, there isn't much faith in the manager, and some uproar over the picks doesn't exactly bode well. Wales are at their first World Cup since 1958 and will want to make a huge impression, and I think it's pretty clear that the collective is greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, they've got Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, but then they've also got players who apply their trade at Swindon and MK Dons and the like. And finally, you have Iran, who will set up with the lowest of low blocks, but do have two top-class strikers if Sardar Azmoun can get fit, with him alongside Mehdi Taremi potentially leading the line. But the team, from what I gather, is actually despised back in Iran, considering that they've failed to back up the protests that are going on in the country right now. And whilst I'm speaking about it, it is absolutely deplorable that apparently 15,000 people are being sentenced to death simply for protesting to have basic human rights. I don't know if I can put into words how deplorable that really is. It's sickening, it really is. And if I can remember, I'll make sure to leave some resources in the description for you to check out if you want to either donate or understand the situation a bit more. It's simply horrific. But back to the group, I think it's going to be England who come out on top, and it's going to be between Wales and the USA, considering how much the Iranian public currently hate their squad and actually want them to be eliminated as early as possible, considering their actions or lack thereof in the build-up to the tournaments. Wales are qualified for the knockouts at every single major tournament that they qualified for. I think that run will continue. I really do. I think, as I say, collective is greater than the sum of its parts, and that will guide them through ahead of the USA in second place. Group C, I actually think, is the easiest group to predict, so I won't spend too long on this one. Argentina are, of course, going to come in first. It's Messi's last World Cup, and he'll want to go out with a bang. And more importantly though, they have a much better all-round squad than in 2018, and they're unbeaten since 2019, including winning the Copa America last year, so of course they're going to walk this group. Mexico aren't going to make it to the round of 16, I don't think. They've reached the round of 16 every single time since 1994, quite famously, and been knocked out at the round of 16 on each occasion. But this time around, that run is going to end negatively. I think they're going to come in third. They've got an aging squad that may well rely too heavily on Herving Lozano, and Poland have a much more well-rounded squad that contains likes of, Lewandowski, Zielinski, Szczesny, Matty Cash. Yes, they have a tendency to spectacularly implode at tournaments. They went out in the group stage in 2018 and 2021 at the World Cup and Euros respectively, but surely not now. And as for Saudi Arabia, the draw has not been kind to them. There's a distinct lack of quality compared to the other teams in the group, and I think they're going to come in stone dead last. Group D, I also think is pretty easy to predict, but there's a lot to talk about because first and foremost, you have France. They have so many off-pitch issues, with injuries to the likes of Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, Wesley Fofana, Martial, Rafael Varane, who is actually in the squad but is injured at the moment, and an appearance rights problem, which, as far as I'm aware, hasn't exactly gone away. Plus, there's the holders' curse. Of course, they won the World Cup in 2018, and 4 out of the last 5 holders have gone out in the group stages, a trend which they themselves started back in 2002 when they went out in the group stages without scoring a single goal. And they had a poor showing at Euro 2020, where complacency against Switzerland saw them eliminated on penalties. But this is a very favourable group. Their squad is still fantastic. Benzema, Mbappe, and just incredible strength and depth. Even though Denmark did beat them twice recently, I think they're going to win the group. But speaking of Denmark, they were Euro's best qualifiers behind Germany, almost with a perfect record. Their squad cohesion is extraordinary. Christian Eriksen is back in the fold after his horrific cardiac arrest on the pitch at Euro 2020, and they're going to easily come in second place in this group ahead of 2 very weak teams, realistically, when compared to France and Denmark in the forms of Australia and Tunisia. I mean, the dip in quality in Australia's squad of last decade has been so noticeable. Gone the likes of Tim Cahill, Harry Kewell, Mark Schwarzer, Mark Viduka, etc. And there's such a distinct lack of star quality in this squad now. It doesn't bode well for them, and I actually think they're going to come in last place behind Tunisia, who have a lot of experience in their team, coupled with the wildcard choice with the likes of Hannibal Mejri of Man United, but it will be between them and Australia to see who avoids the wooden spoon, and Tunisia will do it, but there's no way they're getting out of the group, neither with Australia. Group E is the first group so far with 2 genuine world powerhouses in it in the forms of Germany and Spain, and regrettably for Japan, who do have a very good squad, good forward line with the likes of Takefusa Kubo and Takumi Minamino, plus Takahiro Tomiyasu at the back, they've been done over by the draw. And even the fair play will won't save them this time like it did in 2018. And as for Costa Rica, you can only rely on Keylor Navas for so long, and there's only so long that he can keep out the top sides for. But as for who finishes top, I'm going to go with Germany. I mean, this is a phenomenal Germany squad, and now they have a top-class manager in the form of Hansi Flick, who the players believe in, unlike at Euro 2020, where it was quite clear that Joachim Löw had lost the dressing room somewhat, hence their underperformance and eventual exit in the round of 16 to England. Now it's a fantastic mixture of youth and experience with a Bayern bedrock. It's going to be a really good showing in this group for Germany, and they're going to finish ahead of Spain, who are, as per normal, stacked in midfield, will dominate the ball and almost force their opponents into submission, but their lack of a star quality number 9 will probably mean that they don't come in first, but they're going to very comfortably come in second without a shadow of a doubt. Now, when the draw was made back in April, Group F was the one that I earmarked as the one that I really wanted to watch the most, because any of those 4 teams could either make it through or go out with, I think, relatively equal chance. And if you put one of them to finish in top or another to finish in bottom, I really wouldn't even criticize you at all. I think it's a very open group. You've got Belgium, whose golden generation realistically have 2 chances left to win a major tournament, considering most of them are either late 20s or early 30s, the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Thibaut Courtois, Eden Hazard, Romelu Lukaku, etc. But of course, they are still quality players at the end of the day. Then you've got Croatia, who were the World Cup finalists in 2018, had a strong Nations League topping their group, and are brimming with confidence with a stacked midfield like Luka Modric, Marcelo Brozovic, Mateo Kovacic as well. Then you've got Morocco, who have so much star quality, including Hakim Ziyech, who is back in the international fold after his dispute with the Moroccan FA and the manager has finally come to an end, as well as Achraf Hakimi, Yassine Bounou and Mounir Al Haddadi. And then Canada, who are currently in the midst of their golden generation and have reached their first World Cup since 1986 and will want to show themselves off, much like with America, before they co-host or partially co-host the World Cup in 2026. A really tough one to narrow down, but I've gone with Belgium to finish in top, and I think this is one World Cup too soon for Canada. It'll be the acclimatization World Cup before the one they partially co-host in 2026. And Morocco, in any other group, maybe apart from Group E, I think they would stand a chance of going through, but it's so tightly congested, and I think Croatia just have a bit too much about them. So they're going to come in second, Canada in third, and Morocco in fourth. But as I said at the start of this segment, don't be surprised to see any of them go through, or indeed any of them go out. Group G, first place is pretty obvious. It's going to be Brazil. They're the bookies' favourites, and with pretty good reason. They have an incredible spine, immense strength and depth, and a good manager in the form of Chiche. I mean, they've left Roberto Firmino at home. When you leave Roberto Firmino and Gabriel of Arsenal at home, when you leave both of those two players at home, as well as plenty of others whose names don't come to mind right now, you know you're in good stead. But behind them, things are a bit more interesting. You've got Switzerland, who are still reliant on Granit Xhaka and Xherdan Shaqiri, but haven't really got a proper number 9 as of yet, but have also got players in really top quality form in the Premier League, like Manuel Akanji at Man City, Xhaka at Arsenal, and Fabian Schär at Newcastle. Then you've got Cameroon, who had a really good showing on home soil at the African Cup of Nations, coming in third, with Vincent Aboubakar being very vocal about how he thinks he's as good as Mohamed Salah. Now's the time to prove it, but who have only won one in the last 15 World Cup games dating back to 1994. And then you've got Serbia, who were unbeaten in qualifying, pit Portugal to automatic qualification, and have such a good squad. Likes of Alexander Mitrovic and Dusan Vlahovic up front, Dusan Tadic in behind them, and Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. They will be tough to stop. Serbia will also want to get one over Switzerland after they beat them in the group stages in the World Cup in 2018, a group which also featured Brazil, which is quite a strange coincidence. In fact, Group D is also very similar to Group C of the 2018 World Cup. But anyway, I think Serbia will get one over Switzerland, and they will make it through at the Swiss' expense. I don't want to write the Swiss off completely, because I did that at Euro 2020. I predicted them to finish last in their group, and they ended up reaching the quarterfinals, beating France on penalties, no less. But I think they're going to just fall short, and Cameroon will come in last. Much like with Group E, I think predicting which teams are going to be eliminated from Group H is actually pretty straightforward. Ghana, they went out in the group stages of the African Cup of Nations earlier this year, and yes, they've had a sprinkling of new talent with Iñaki Williams and Tariq Lamptey as two notable players switching nationalities in time for the World Cup, but their first choice keeper is out injured, and in spite of their massive talents that they have at their disposal, Thomas Partey, Mohamed Kudus, Mohamed Salisu, and the aforementioned Williams and Lamptey, I think it's just going to be a bit too much for them to get out. And with South Korea, Son Heung-min is back. He's declared himself fit for the finals, which is huge news for them. The lack of squad depth and the star quality behind them will prove costly, so I think Ghana's going to come in third and South Korea in fourth. But as for who comes out on top between Uruguay and Portugal, I'm going to go with Uruguay. I think they have such a well-rounded squad, boasting one of the best midfields at the tournament, likes of Federico Valverde, who's one of the most informed players in the world right now in any position, never mind in just midfield, and Rodrigo Bentancur of Spurs. Plus you have players who could make an impression like Darwin Nunez and Edinson Cavani, Luis Suarez and Diego Godin, who will want to make one last good impression at a World Cup, which it will probably be their last one before they retire from international football or indeed football altogether. And now, after replacing their manager midway through the South American qualification process, they have a manager who knows how to get the best or maximize the potential out of their squad. And I think they'll win all of their group games with relative comfort. That means that Portugal are going to come in second, and I think it's purely because of everything that's gone on recently. The CR7 interview, they're still going to be relying on him and probably playing to him rather than playing around him, and that will hold the team back. And you've seen obviously in the camp, Bruno Fernandes and João Cancelo have basically snubbed, or if you want to call it that, Ronaldo will either pre-camp or indeed at training sessions. So it doesn't exactly seem a harmonious camp right now, but they have a fantastic squad, make no mistake about it. Cancelo, Ruben Dias, Fernand, Joao Felix, Bernardo Silva, as well as Ronaldo, who will obviously play, but he might hold the team back from progressing really deep into the competition and from finishing first in this group, but not enough to not get out of the group, if that makes sense. So those are my group stage predictions, and should all of them come true, which, as I say, I don't expect all of them to, but you never know. Here is what the round of 16 will look like. Again, I'm not going to dwell on the round of 16 or just knockout stage in general for too long, because these ties are very hypothetical. They probably won't all happen, but if they do, this is how I think that they will pan out. The first block of 2 sees the Netherlands take on Wales and Argentina face off against Denmark, and in as much as I do rate the Denmark squad, and they made the semi-finals of Euro 2020 and had a phenomenal qualification record, I think Argentina will have a bit too much for them to make it through. Yes, of course, the World Cup there's always a potential for shocks at a World Cup, but Argentina have such a well-rounded squad and they'll want to do something for Messi, I'm sure, so they'll make it through the round of 16. And the Netherlands versus Wales, pretty easy, really. Netherlands are going to make it through. The next block of 2 sees England clash with Senegal and France take on Poland. England versus Senegal, this could be a bias hat on, but there'll be a point where the Senegalese just run out of steam. As much as they came alive in the knockout stages of African Cup of Nations, I don't think they'll do that this time. England will have a bit too much for them, and France versus Poland, provided they don't bottle it in the group stages, and provided they buck that trend and don't get all too complacent, they're going to walk past Poland, I think. The next batch sees Germany versus Croatia and Brazil versus Portugal. Now, Croatia obviously reached the final in 2018. I don't think it's going to happen again. Germany are just they're a step above right now, I think, ahead of Croatia. But when it comes to Brazil versus Portugal, this could be very interesting. If they find a way to make it work with playing Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal do stand a very good chance of beating Brazil, but I think Fernando Santos, the manager, is still stuck in that mindset of we need to play to Ronaldo, which, as we've seen this season at Man United, hasn't really worked. So if they do that, then it's going to be pretty easy for Brazil to capitalise upon, and I think that they'll beat them. The final block is Belgium taking on Spain and Uruguay facing off against Serbia. It's quite mad to think that it's guaranteed that one of Belgium, Germany and Spain will not make it past the round of 16. Of course, all of them could be eliminated before the round of 16, depending on various permutations, but one of them is guaranteed to go out before the quarter-final stage. I think that team will be Belgium. I think they will lose to Spain. I think there's a point where the Spanish will just click and pass the Belgians into submission and really take this tournament by storm, starting off by beating the Belgians. And as for Uruguay versus Serbia, my 2 potential dark horses for this tournament, it's going to be Uruguay who come out on top. Now onto the quarterfinals, where we've got the Netherlands versus Argentina, Germany versus Brazil, England v France, and Spain versus Uruguay. Netherlands versus Argentina, I think there'll be a point where the Netherlands' lack of a star goalkeeper and potential lack of a really top quality number 9 will catch up with them, and that will be now, where Argentina will knock them out and exact revenge for the 1998 World Cup quarterfinal. Yes, it was 24 years ago, but you've got to throw a reference in there somewhere, haven't you? One team who will definitely look for revenge should this tie come about is Brazil against Germany, with, of course, that 7-1 annihilation on home soil by the Germans inflicted upon the Brazilians, still lingering large and looming large, rather, in the memory. What I'm about to say might be a bit of a shock, considering Brazil are the favourites, but whilst I don't think, of course, it will be an exact repeat scoreline, I think it will be a repeat result. I do have a lot of faith in this Germany side, with the manager that they've got and the whole squad that they've got. Yes, of course, they bottled the last World Cup, but they don't have that reputation of being the holders anymore and having the holders curse or what have you. And as I say, Hansi Flick, I really think has got this Germany side motivated, in gear, and ready to take on the world, quite literally. And their run will continue by beating Brazil. England versus France is up next, and yes, of course, I could have my patriotic hat on and say that England are going to walk past France and win 7-0 or whatever, but let's be real, France have too much for England, and if they continue to play that kind of defensive shape that they did at the Euros, France will probably know how to exploit it more than anyone else, and as a result of that, I don't think it's coming home. 58 years of hurt, or actually be 2 years of hurt considering we won the Women's Euros, but doesn't really have the same rhythmical or melodic quality when you put it in the context of the song. But anyway, I digress. I think France are going to win that tie. As for Spain versus Uruguay, I think if they come up against the likes of the Netherlands and maybe even England, I think Uruguay would have stood a good chance of going through, but Spain will just have a bit too much for Uruguay and they will make it through to the semi-finals. Speaking of the semi-finals, if the tournament pans out the way I think it will, they will be Argentina versus Germany, a repeat of the 2014 World Cup final, and France versus Spain, a clash between two neighbouring countries. Starting with Argentina versus Germany, it's going to be a repeat result of the 2014 World Cup final. Messi will not win the World Cup in what is potentially his last tournaments. Germany really do look strong and they really do look like they're going to make a huge impression at this tournament. With France versus Spain, again, if the French can get their house together, their house in order, and put all the off-pitch issues aside and shackle or take off the shackles of, you know, the World Cup holders curse and what have you, they're really going to go deep into this tournament. I mean, obviously they go deep, we're going to put them in the semi-finals, but they will get past Spain and make it to the final against their own neighbours, of course, Germany. So it won't be a South American representative, and Spain will put up a good showing at the World Cup. I don't think they'll be too disheartened by making it to the semi-finals, but I think France will just about have enough to get past them. On a side note, if the third place playoff is between Argentina and Spain, I think Argentina are going to win it. And now we move on to the big one, the final, Germany versus France. Who will take home the World Cup? Will it be the Germans who will add a fifth star to their badge and become the joint most successful nation in World Cup history alongside Brazil? Or will France be the first team since Brazil in 1962 to retain the World Cup? I think it's going to be Germany who win it. I'm sorry. I know this is quite strange. I know it seems wrong. It doesn't seem right to predict Germany to win the World Cup, but I'm sorry. I just think that they have such an amazing squad, an amazing manager, and that combination will see them through to winning this World Cup and adding that fifth star to their badge. So there you have it. My winners of the World Cup are going to be Germany, the finalists are going to be France, Argentina and Spain are going to go out in the semi-finals, and obviously it's not coming home. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think I'm an absolute idiot? Do you guys think I'm a clown? What are your World Cup predictions? Let me know down in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this particular video, please don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and you can ring the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a video straight away. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you then.